Good morning, team. We are back with another episode of Cajun Tiger Plays. This is, I believe, our 15th episode. I have recorded this a while ago, and it was corrupted. The video didn't take. So, we're going to pick up from where we left off. We finished doing some mining up here. We finished doing some mining up here. Again, to reiterate, you don't need to do your mining exactly like I do, but laying everything out exactly the same. However, be aware that when you align everything on your mining location, the more miners that you have hitting a location, the more quickly the location is going to be depleted. So the more miners covering a node, the quicker that node's going to be depleted. The more miners covering a full location, the quicker that location is going to be depleted. Fixing a belt here that I saw in one of the previous videos, I had missed to connect that belt. So we have Mark 1 belts right now. They are 6 per second, and our miners are outputting 180 per minute, which works out to be 3 per second. So we're using 2 miners for a belt. When we upgrade to our Mark 2 belts, they'll be 12 per second. We can go in and look at those real quick. 12 per second. So we'll need 4 miners to cover a single belt. Now, since we're putting all of our raw materials in the planetary logistics system and we're dragging them through these drones somewhere else to make stuff, we don't actually need to worry too much about that. We want to think about those belts when we come out. And we'll talk about the golden formula for figuring belts out and things like that later. I'm going to fly this way while we're talking, just so we can get these last few solar panels done. Let's fly all the way down here. I didn't realize we had so many that weren't done, or we would have done them already. So anyway, the miners don't have to be exactly the way I do my miners. The more miners you have on a location, the more quickly that's going to disappear. And then, like I said, we'll look at belts in a little bit. So our goal for today is to finish our next array of smelting, which is our 1-to-1 smelting. Remember, we did 2-to-1 smelting, which is our coal, our titanium, our silicon, things like that. We did the 2-to-1. What we did not do yet is our 1-to-1. We also did our stack smelting, which is like iron, the crystals that we need, and things like that. So what we have left to do is 1-to-1. So iron, copper, stone bricks, even magnets, even though they are a little bit longer to create, they're still 1-to-1 in that sense. So that's what we're going to be working on today. We're going to build another array right here. Before we do that, let's jump into our technology menu and grab some more upgrades. So what I want to do is do our inventory capacity twice. We will get plenty of inventory capacity. We want to do, we can't do that. We need Mecha Core level 3, and then we can increase our communication control to get more drones. Can't do, oh, we could do another level of inventory, but we can't do that. Mecha speed would be nice, but I think we'll do drone engines and our drive engine, which is our flight speed, and then we want to do our energy so that we can get more power. And I don't know that we could do that, but we need Mecha Core level 4. Get more energy maybe. These are all queued up. We'll go ahead and queue this one up for our mech frame speed. I don't think we can do the next one. Our queues are full anyway. Okay, so all that done, just a lot of upgrades. That's going to help us not be as slow and be able to move faster and get things done more quickly. All right, we had talked about this before, I believe. We want to put the center line of our planetary logistics station on the 8th of these 5th parallels that we look at. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is the 8th of the fifth parallels. So we have 3 5x5 sections on that side. We're going to add 3 on that side as well. Then we're going to bring this out the same distance as the current array, because it's going to be pretty much the same distance for this array. Well, let me rephrase that. It's going to be exactly the same distance for this smelting array that we're going to do. Do the outsides first, and then we can just color in all the insides. There we go. All right, so let's build our planetary logistics station here. Again, we want one off the meridian, and we want it on this 8th of the 5th parallels. So we align it there. If we count the 5th parallels, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's the 8th one. So that's down the center, and the meridian is on the right side as we look at it from here. So that's exactly where we want it. Let's drag these power poles, Tesla towers, this way so that we can get a little bit of power so we don't have to watch that blink while we build the rest of it. We're going to start this build with our smelter. Again, we're going to use the output line on the side of the center. On this side of the center, we're going to put our smelter on the line, not next to it. So on the line, we do 6. This time, though, we're going to skip 2 lines and put 6 more. And then the same thing up here. We do our 6, we skip 2 lines, and we do 6 more. Now, we could make this build symmetrical, but it's a little bit easier, and it's going to be a popular build because of all the things we make with this that are very, very, very much used, like iron and copper and bricks, that we want to make this as easy to plop down when we need to use it as possible. So we're going to pick our first filter, and we're going to bring a line of raw materials here. We're going to take a line of finished products back in. We're going to pick our filter here and take a line of raw materials out and a line of finished product back in. Filtered, a line of raw materials out. Turn our screen around. A line of finished materials in. Line of raw materials out. And finally, a line of finished materials in. Again, this leaves this side over here. If we decide to do proliferators on this, we can. And we'll be able to fill in that later. We're going to move over here a little bit, let our miners finish. Now, the cool thing is, when I put these sorters down, you'll be able to tell that I can copy and paste this particular one smelter, to every single one of these. And it makes it a little bit easier to copy and paste, since we don't have to worry about, like we did on these other ones, we were copying and pasting the bottom row to the top row and the middle row, and it was just weird. So instead of doing that, and instead of making this symmetrical, it's just a little bit easier to be able to copy and paste everything. Now, because of where we extended one extra line, we can't drag our Tesla towers that way, so we'll just drag them this way instead. Put them here and here, and that gets everything done for our build except for our settings on the planetary logistics station. So with that set, we are done. This is a one-to-one build. We have one line going out, one line going in. It's a 6 items per second on the belt, and each of these formulas, with the exception of magnets, is a 1 second formula. So we'll have 6 going in, which means a full belt going in. So this is what we want our blueprint to look like. As I said, I've already built this a couple of times because of doing it in testing and doing it in a video that got corrupted. So I'm going to grab the title, Smelting 1-1 Mark 1, just like we did the others for Smelting 2-1, Smelting Stack, and the smelter here. And what I'm going to do is just grab the blueprint and overwrite it. Again, don't get the prime meridian, but get next to it and make sure you have everything covered. Oops, I have to click a second time. Make sure you have everything covered, and then you can enter your title. And when I tab, it's gonna, well, when I click out of it, you can't tab. It picks everything up from that one that I've already done. But again, Smelting 1-1 Mark 1 with the smelter as your thumbnail. Save your blueprint, and it'll be there, and we're ready to go. So with that done, we can tell it what recipe we want and copy that. Again, copy it to everything out here because it's the same build structure for every single one of these smelters. Then we bring in stone, we take out our stone bricks, and we give him, let's give him 20 of these guys. 21? Okay, 21, maybe. Let's take those out. How did I get 21? Let's go with 20 of those guys and drop them in. There we go. All right, and then we're going to demand the stone so that we can make stone bricks. Now, we're making stone bricks, and we're making steel, and up there we're making graphite, energetic graphite for our power. We made stone bricks and steel, though, so that we can make foundations, because we need a lot of foundations. If you'll recall, our planet is 62.2% covered with water, and so we want to cover much of that water with foundations so that we can build on it. Okay, so let's look at our grid, and we see the fault line here. So everything between the equator and this first fault line, we generally, not always, but generally will use that for smelting. Then everything on the pole side of this first fault line we will use for assemblies. And we might actually go through this next fault line and do assemblies up here, but it'll be a little bit tighter, a little bit more of a specific build as opposed to a blueprinted build. All right. So between these two fault lines, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of our 5x5 grids. And that means we can use 5 of those grids up here for one line of assembly and 5 down here for another line of assembly, which gives us 2 lines next to each other all the way around the planet. And again, normally we would use this and keep it within 1 or 2 loons, which we talked about before, which is our lines coming down from the pole. I don't know which one of these lines it is, but they would be coming down from the pole, and they would we would try to keep it between those. But with the assembling, it's less of an issue than with the smelting. Smelting just works really, really well. Assembling, on the other hand, is a very varied process. So let's talk about where we're going to put our planetary logistics station. We are going to put it on the same meridian, one towards the prime meridian from the 5th meridian, so the 4th meridian over. With the parallels, though, we're 5 of the 5x5 squares, so there's no real center line. This space is what's in the center. Whenever you have something like that, build on the equator side. It gives you just a little bit more room. It's not a huge deal. You could build on the other side if you wanted to, but I'm going to build on the equator side. So we're going to build on the equator side and on the 4th meridian. So that means we're here. So our middle space is right there. Our meridians that are on either side of it, our parallels, that are on either side of it. And then again, as always, our meridian is here. If you're building next to a loon, you don't necessarily have a prime meridian. You want to keep that in mind. Don't just build against the next prime meridian, because you might cross over a loon that you don't want to be building on. It gets confusing, but hopefully you will be able to figure it out with your builds. All right, lay down a little bit of foundation, and then we're going to put down our assemblers. We are building our assemblers on the line, not next to the line, and we do want to take advantage of the 2 outside belts on this side. So they will be for materials going back into the build. So then we're going to come straight toward the equator, or toward the pole, skipping 2 lanes, and we're going to drop 1 there. Now that we're as far as we can go, we're going to come out and bring 3, and then we can go from these, oops, not there, lined it up properly, there. And then from this side, we want to do the same thing there, and skip 2 and there. We can actually drag these and they line up properly. That's not always going to be the case, and that's because of the gap. Mind the gap, as they say. So let me show you. You can visibly see that the gap gets smaller the further toward the pole you get, and that's just because of the way that things work when you put a square grid on a globe. But what's cool about this is if we walk it, you can walk all the way up. But if I turn around and try to go back, I can't get in the gap. I'm too big. I can't get through there. If I skip that one, I can get through the rest of them. So it's just interesting because of the way the grid is laid out on a globe to see how that works. So I don't know, maybe you don't find it interesting. I find it interesting. So anyway, onward, we're going to pick our filter number 1, and we're going to come right along here all the way over. We're going to pick our filter number 2, because the majority of things that we build with assemblers is going to either require 2 or 3 outputs, or 2 or 3 raw materials. So we're going to, let's go one more there, and then we'll use this one as number 2 filter there. And then these lines here will go back in. This line here will go back in. Let's grab one more there. This one will go back in, and then over here, this one also will go back in. There we go. All right. Now, again, we use 2 spaces here, so our power poles aren't going to stretch the way we want them that way, so we'll have to go side to side to stretch and build them this time. We'll build those. Then we are going to go into our blueprint library so that don't middle click on your blueprint library. It makes weird things happen with your map. Okay, then space enter here, space enter here, space enter here. Again, we're conserving our foundations for right now because we don't have a lot. So once we get this build going, we will have plenty of foundations at some point in the future, and we'll be good to go. So we're going to build those 2. I am going to build here, and I'm actually going to fly just a little bit so that we can get them, just take them all the way up as far as we can go. Go back into our blueprint, grab this again, and we can drop a few more here. Space enter, here, space enter, and here, space enter. And that gives us connection all the way up. We don't necessarily need it, but it's not a bad thing either. Okay, now for our sorters. Remember, this build, let's go in here. This build is for things like electromagnetic turbines, uses 2 items. This build is for things like circuit boards, uses 2 items. Processors, uses 2 items. Microcrystalline components, uses 2 items. That uses 3 items unless we have the unipolar magnets, so it would not be used for that. This one just uses 1 item, so we wouldn't use it for that. Gears just uses 1 item. This one uses 2 items, so we would use it for our plasma exciters. 3 items here, 3 items there. So basically the idea is if you're using 2 items, 2 materials to make up your product, you can use this recipe. So we've done this before. We take 1 line in from the closest side, then we take 1 line in from the further away side. With that done, we can copy and drag, copy to the bottom row up top, and drag. Oh, you know what we didn't do though? We didn't put a sorter coming out of these guys. And we do want our products to come out. Now, next thing we're going to talk about is probably one of the most confusing, but it's also one of the most important aspects. It is the golden formula. Every machine that builds something in the game has a speed. And you can see that speed on here. It says production speed 0.75. If we go to a smelter, it is production speed 1 times. If we go to, we don't have any made right now, but if we went to a chemical plant, we can look at that. The chemical plant is a production speed of 1. Our oil refinery is a production speed of 1. Most things that make things have a production speed of 1. The Mark 1 assembly machines do not. Our Mark 3 assembly machines are bigger than 1, and the Mark 2 assembly machines are a production speed of 1. So there are a couple of things that you need to take into account when you're using the golden formula. Number 1 is if you're wanting to use a build like this, where you're only going to have a single belt feeding your array for a raw material or materials going back in, you basically want to look at the item that is the biggest number. So in this case, it is our stone bricks. It's 3, while the steel that we use and the output of foundations are 1. We look at these, it's either circuits or the microcrystalline components, both are 2. We come over here, it's the prisms, 2 versus 1 for everything else. We come here, it's 2 for the iron. If we come here, it's either one of the materials that we use to make the electromagnetic turbines. It's 2. So you want to take that number, and we're going to use the foundation as our example. You want to multiply that number because we're only going to have a belt of stone bricks coming in. So we need 3 stone bricks for a recipe. Multiply that times the production speed of your machine. So 3 times 0.75 in our case is 2.25. Yes, I did that math ahead of time so that I didn't have to do it on the fly because I wouldn't be able to think about it on the fly. So we're going to take that number and we're going to divide by our number of seconds for the recipe, which is 1. So 2.25 divided by 1 is 2.25. That's how many stone bricks we need per second. So if we come look at something else like the electromagnetic turbines and we multiply the 2 by 0.75, we would get 1.5. If we divide that 1.5 by the 2 seconds in the recipe, we get 0.75. That's how many of these electric motors we need, and that's how many of the magnetic coils we need. Per assembler per second is 0.75. Okay, so you take that golden formula times the speed divided by the time of your recipe. That gets you the base number per assembler or per machine, whatever machine it is. Now, we know, now that we've got that number, 2.25, we know that if we come here and let's just, well, before we do that, let's increase those and let's go into our blueprint. Again, I did this earlier. Assembler, 2 item, Mark 1. So that's what I'm going to choose. I'm going to highlight everything for this blueprint. Again, avoiding the prime meridian. Select all of that. Enter my blueprint name, assembler 2 item, Mark 1, and click assembler 2 item so that it does not word wrap here, and then choose the assembler as our picture and save that blueprint. All right, now that we have that blueprint saved, we can get back to talking about our golden formula. So our golden formula, we're on a Mark 1 assembler, so that's 0.75. We need 3 stone bricks. 3 times 0.75 is 2.25. Divided by 1 second to produce the foundation is 2.25. So now, when we come into our planetary logistics system and we say, I want to get stone bricks and I want to get iron or steel, and I'm going to be providing foundation. So these are demand, and we'll go ahead and grab 20 of our drones and put them in here, and we can start working. Now, we know that that means we're going to have stone bricks coming out here on this line. We already have it. That's 6 per second. So when those stone bricks hit this sorter, that sorter is going to take 2.25 per second to make foundations here. Then when it hits this sorter, it's going to take 2.25 to make this assembler work here. So that's 6 minus 2.25, which leaves us with 3.75. 3.75 minus the next 2.25 leaves us with 1.5. So then when we get to this assembler and this sorter, we don't have enough for the full 2.25. So he's not going to be running at full speed, but he'll still run. He'll still work, just not full speed. Now, doing that for just 3 is super easy. Doing that when you have potentially a 30 item per second Mark III belt and you're only using 0.75 per second or something like that, that's going to take you forever to count all the way through. So just take your 6, divide 6 by 2.25, and that gives us 2.667 or something like that, I think. That means 1, 2, 3 assemblers. Now, we say 1 because we know Stone Bricks is on the closer to this one, so he's first. So we'll be running basically just shy of 3 assemblers for this. So we could cut this group off. We're not going to, and I'm going to tell you why in just a minute, but we're not going to. We're going to leave them there. But we know 3 assemblers should be working, pretty much 2 of them full time and 1 of them part of the time. Now, you would still use the same recipe if you wanted to say, I want a full belt of foundations coming out. So you would take your 1 times 0.75 divided by 1, and then your 6, and that leaves you with 0.75. Then you would have your 6 divided by 0.75. I don't know what the exact number is. I would think about 8, something like that. And so that means you would need 8 assemblers, but you're gonna need more stone brick than what you have here. So this blueprint would not work for that. You would need to redesign and do a custom blueprint or a custom design for that. I hope all of that makes sense. I'll try to remember to put some of the formulas in the subtitles as we go forward so that you guys can see the formulas, and hopefully it will make more sense and you'll be able to figure it out playing around, doing the math on your own. If not, there are some really, really cool websites out there. If you search for Dyson Sphere Program, you could find some websites that they will build that formula for you, tell you exactly how many of everything you need. Now, I told you we were going to leave these. The reason we're going to leave them is because as soon as we get enough Mark II belts, we're going to come and replace this, and all 6 on either side will be in operation. But for now, we're getting our foundations built. So that's pretty cool. So hopefully all of that made sense. Again, I know it's kind of confusing. If you have trouble with it, if you don't like math or you have trouble with math, go find one of the I forget what they call them, but there are recipe websites that you can look up that will basically compute all of those formulas for you and tell you exactly how many of every machine you need. You just have to play around with the website to figure out how they work. All right, we've been busy talking all this episode, and so I want to take a few minutes and do a shout out. And today's shout out is, again, a little bit of a unique one, but I think it's a good one. Today's shout out is for the Reddit Factorio community. Yeah, that's kind of weird, but the Reddit Factorio community is a cool place if you play Factorio. Reddit for the most part, the Reddit communities for the assembly games are all pretty good. The Factorio community, though, is the first place that I truly encountered the idea of embracing the spaghetti, if you will. So embracing the fact that you may or may not be optimal every time you build something. So that's that's a cool thing. Like I said, that's kind of what I'm thinking my niche is going to be. Niche, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of what I'm thinking it's going to be. So I'm kind of leaning into that a little bit. But the first place that I really truly encountered it was in the Factorio Reddit community. So good job, guys and girls there, men and women. Sorry, don't mean to call you girls. I'm an old dude. comes out that way. Don't mean it offensive, but please forgive me. So, men and women of the Factorio community on Reddit, thank you for being such good sports about all the weird spaghetti that people post. All right, when we come back next time, we are going to update our recipes here because we don't need to be building foundations anymore, and we're going to start working on making Mark II belts. When we get our recipes up, I pulled all of these belts in so that we can start using them to feed into our Mark II belt production. We will do that next time. Until then, remember, players, the cake is a lie. Keep building, team.